Okay, so here we are with this week's Raw review. It's going to be a little different than Raw reviews in the past, mostly because I don't really care about any of the matches that took place on Raw. It wasn't a bad Raw. All the matches, probably that are on the Hulu version, are all pretty good. We had a table match between Braun Strowman and Baron Corbin that wasn't too long, and if you wanted to see Braun Strowman get revenge after what happened at the pay-per-view, then you got that. Triple H was out at the beginning of the show with a little segment talking about 4 members of NXT that were going to be debuting on this episode of Raw. And that's where I'm going to focus most of my attention. Not on the opening segment, but on those 4 members of NXT who debuted on Raw on Monday. That's what this is mostly going to be about. So hopefully that's not a disappointment for anybody. I do feel like it was the most noteworthy thing by a long shot in the episode, and also happened to kind of take place over the course of 3 matches as well. So, there's stuff to talk about, I guess. When I say I don't care about any of the matches, I guess that's not entirely true. I care more about their context than I do about who won, right? So, the first member of NXT that we saw was Ricochet. He came out during a Finn Balor match with Finn Balor. Well, I guess it wasn't really a match with Finn Balor, was it? So Finn Balor was having a little "I'm the Intercontinental Champion and that's great" moment. And then Lio Rush came out and interrupted him. And I was expecting Lio Rush to want to challenge for that championship, because after what Bobby Lashley did to Lio Rush at the pay-per-view, I wouldn't expect, if you missed it, Lashley lost the IC title to Finn Balor, and at the end, in a handicap match as well. So Lio Rush was in the ring too, and Lio Rush is actually the one who got pinned. Bobby Lashley took exception to this and hit Lio Rush with several moves, one of them being a really brutal spine buster that looked really nasty, especially given the enormous discrepancy between those 2 men's sizes. So I was kind of expecting Lio to come out and be like, Bobby Lashley never gave me a chance to show what I can do, and how about you give me a shot one-on-one for that title? And so that's what I was expecting. But he came out and said, "You don't deserve it. Bobby Lashley deserves it." And in the midst of all that, which is, interesting, I was not expecting for Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley to continue having an alliance, unless, like I said, I guess I did mention in the video that if they do, it's going to be kind of like he's like the battered, kind of like Paul Heyman is sometimes, like a bullied friend or something, who's like more scared of the person they work for than actually on their side. So, like I said, in the midst of that argument, Bobby Lashley came out and started attacking Finn Balor. They cut to commercial, and when they cut back, we're in a tag team match with Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush versus Finn Balor and Ricochet. And Ricochet, not only did Finn Balor and Ricochet win, but Ricochet had a very strong showing. I can't argue anything about the way he was booked. I mean, Finn Balor is a cool guy to have him booked with. There was a lot of time where Ricochet and Lio Rush were in the ring together at the same time fighting each other, and that was very entertaining. It was kind of a botched move in there, but still, it was entertaining. And I don't know, I certainly didn't mind it, right? Like, it wasn't a bad match. And Ricochet, and like I said, Ricochet and Finn Balor, they won. So then we have a tag team match. It may or may not have been the next match, but it is the next match I'm going to focus on. It was a tag team match between The Revival and DIY. That's right. Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano together again, at least for this evening on Raw. And again, this was a good match. Like, this was actually a really good match. And I've got no issue with the way it was booked. I've got no issue with any of the spots that occurred in it. I mean, again, I think all of the NXT guys kind of had a moment where something didn't quite go right in the ring. And I think that that's mostly to do with working with people that they haven't worked with extensively yet to this point. I'm sure that it wasn't inexperience, botched wrestling things. It seemed more like a lack of direct experience working with the people they were working with when they have a much smaller roster over there at NXT, and they're always fighting the same people over there. That's my one gripe about the show, is that you pretty much get the same like marquee matches all the time. It rotates between like 6 guys and like 3 girls, 4 women, maybe 4 women and 6 guys. And that's about your top 10 in NXT, and everything kind of revolves around them for like the real juice of it. That's my cat, ladies and gentlemen. If you heard that, I'm sure you couldn't have missed it. You're good, Bean. You're very good. Anyway, so they're always working with the same people, and I bet they really get used to the comfort of always having worked with these same people. And you put them in the ring with some new people, and there's some minor mistakes that occur. So other than that, I don't have a gripe with this match at all. It was entertaining just from the spectacle of it. They didn't have Gargano and Ciampa come in like greenhorns or rookies. They came in strong and beat the tag team champs cleanly, really. Unless you're maybe arguing they were booked too powerfully, but generally, if the WWE is listening to us on social media, on Twitter, whatever, they're going to hear that we're claiming that NXT stars come into WWE and are booked too weak or not enough at all. So if they're bringing these guys up, the way they showed us tonight is that maybe they're listening. Like, if you were going to complain that they were booked too strong, DIY, then like, what happy, just right Goldilocks zone are you friggin' looking for, right? So, like, I don't have a problem with this. The next match, again, I don't think it was the next segment. I think we had like a little celebratory Sasha Bailey moment in there somewhere. But the next match that I'm going to really kind of focus on, again, because I kind of want to talk about the NXT stuff, is Aleister Black versus Elias. This was a shorter match than I was expecting it to be, but not a bad one. Not a bad one at all. And Aleister Black looked strong against an established competitor. Elias always looks pretty good in the ring, and he's not booked like he's not good. Like, he's booked like he's a legitimate threat in the ring. And Black beat him. So, again, I don't really have a problem with that. But what I want to talk about is, it seems, because, I was talking earlier, I mentioned that we always see the same, like, 6 or 8 guys and the same, like, 4 women on NXT TV in, like, the main matches. I feel like the heart of NXT has been cut right out of it. Like, and I'm a little worried about that. Like, I'm pretty sure that tomorrow we're supposed to get a match between Johnny Gargano and the Velveteen Dream for that NXT North American Championship. And I expect him to lose, Gargano. but I didn't expect him to leave NXT. And Ricochet, I mean, the guy's important to that show. I mean, I like Undisputed Era, but they need somebody to fight, right? Like Adam Cole needs somebody to fight. We already know EC3 has made the jump. So he's gone on NXT. Heavy Machinery, they're gone. They've been gone, but they're gone. Lars Sullivan is, for what I can tell, for what we know, is gone. That doesn't look good, right? Like, I love the Velveteen Dream. You need somebody to fight. Tommaso Ciampa is great on NXT TV as this heel champion running around like he gives us something to root for by giving us something to root against. Johnny Gargano might literally be the heart of the show. Like, man. And so, like, I'm worried, guys. I'm worried. Now, I say all of this, but right before I started making this video, there was WWE put out like a Twitter post or something saying that there's going to be some big announcement on NXT this week. And I have a feeling with all of this going on and them literally taking the biggest stars right out of the show, I have a feeling that I know what this is going to be. I think NXT is going to become more of a third brand. I've been kind of saying this, and I'm sure a lot of people who kind of make wrestling like their hobby or their business or whatever have been saying this as well. I don't think that I'm like the only one. But I have been saying on this channel since its inception that I do not view NXT as a developmental brand, really. Their mid-card stuff is obviously developmental at least 50% of the time. But they open the show and they close the show with people who, in my mind, are some of the best wrestlers in the entire world. So I think we're going to get 2-hour NXT. I really do. 2 hours weekly of NXT. Hopefully it's still on the WWE network. I'd hate to see it move to something like Fox Sports 1 or something like that. I'd really hate to see that. I mean, as long as it was still fully available elsewhere, I wouldn't really care. Because I'm not always going to have cable. I don't right this minute. And it already sucks that Raw is 3 hours long and I have to like look up YouTube and go on the internet and pirate half the show to be able to have the full picture of what's going on over there. It's not so bad with SmackDown. You don't miss that much of it on the Hulu show. Basically, all you're missing is the commercials. It's a 2-hour show. It's an hour and a half slot on Hulu. 10 minutes of SmackDown, maybe, that is actually like on the air for other people that you don't get to see if you have Hulu, and I'm fine with that. But it's a bit of a bummer with Raw when you're talking about a 3-hour show getting condensed to an hour and a half. You miss some stuff. It's usually not the most important stuff, but sometimes it's entertaining stuff regardless, right? Like if you only watched the Hulu version of Raw, you wouldn't have seen anything that Mojo Rawley's been doing. It's not important yet. It may become important soon if his character gets a big push, and you might be watching Hulu on Raw, and all of a sudden Mojo Rawley keeps showing up, and you're like, the hell? Where did this come from? And you will have had no idea about him yelling at himself in the mirror and stuff like, you wouldn't know. That's kind of a bummer. And so I would hate to see NXT in a similar situation where like you got to watch it on Hulu and it's, only 70% of the show, or God forbid half the show. But yeah, I think that is what's coming. And I think that may involve NXT being a part of the superstar shakeup, maybe even and some people from Raw and SmackDown getting kind of shifted over there. That wouldn't surprise the hell out of me. Who are some people? That's a good question for anybody who's listening. Put it in the comments. Who are some people that are currently on Raw or SmackDown that you would think you would like to see back on NXT? And are they mostly somewhat recent NXT call-ups who've not been booked right? Is that most of what you wish was different? Because thinking about it, I think that's most of what I wish was different. I think most of the people that I wish were on NXT instead of Raw or SmackDown are like, they're mostly just recent NXT dudes. So yeah, interesting stuff on Raw this week. I think the only thing of note that I didn't really talk about was there was a women's championship match between Ronda Rousey and Ruby Riott. It was better than the one on the pay-per-view, but not much to it. So, but yeah, NXT got some new guys on Raw. This could be good, it could be bad, but I'm a little, other than the prospect of NXT getting a 2-hour slot and becoming a bigger show, which I've had people point out to me could be trying to fix something that isn't broken. Other than that, I can't think of anything good that not having Johnny Gargano, Ricochet, Aleister Black, and Tommaso Ciampa on the show is going to bring you. I can't think of anything good that would come from that. For NXT. It could be good for Raw, I guess. I don't know. What do you think? Tell me. I'll see you tomorrow. Do you think, oh, God, I hope we don't see 4 or 5. I hope we don't find out tomorrow that the Velveteen Dream is making a SmackDown debut, or else NXT is going to become like, what am I watching for? Matt Riddle? Bro, I love Matt Riddle. He's great, but like, that's not what I'm watching for. He was like a little something extra right now. He wasn't the meat of what we were watching for on NXT. All right. I'll see you tomorrow.